welcome to episode 3 of the Road to Respair podcast. My name's Nick, and today I'll be talking to Jacob Crossley, who's part of London's Chain Gang cyclist community, and we'll be talking about what drives him, his motivations behind his cycling, and how he's coped with the loss of his dad. Let's dive straight in. Well, that was a silky smooth start.
Always the way it goes.
Welcome, Jacob, to... This is now episode 3. God, I'm on a roll. This is the Road to Respair podcast, and I guess I've started with a couple of good mates. First of all, Jordan from Giro, and now Jacob. I'm going to try and find some people that have names that don't start with J, and we'll see how we get on. But yeah, thanks for coming on, man. So
no worries. Thank you for having me.
I thought what we'd try and go through is a couple of things. Like, you've written a really beautiful piece for the journal, which if people want to go over and read it, I'll put links up. And obviously I'll share it on social media. I don't want to give too much away on this, purely because it's such a good read that I thought we'd try and talk a bit more about you, bikes, and touch on some of that stuff as well. So I guess I'm trying to think, I can't remember when we first met, but I just saw that Chain Gang's now, you're celebrating 5 years.
Yeah,
I'm super keen to get Jan on at some point. I think what he and you guys have built has been really, really impressive, and the way that it's just kept going and growing has been really, really cool. But I guess where did you find Chain Gang? What got you into cycling? Because you've always been quite sporty, right?
Yeah. I actually got into cycling through a friend of mine I went to uni with called Will. He's just a bit of an athlete all round. He was GB hockey, and we were going into the second lockdown, so the winter one. And he floated the idea of training to do an Ironman, which I liked the sound of until I realized how much I fucking hate running. So we got a couple of very entry level bikes. Throw back to the Triben, which at the time felt like a spaceship.
Was that the white one with the black forks?
No, that's my second bike. So
okay.
the first one was like I think it was called the Triben RC250. It had like micro shift, 8-speed, the heaviest alloy rim brake wheels you've ever felt. Probably 2 sizes too big as well. But I loved it. I loved the mechanical side of it as much as I did the kind of the feeling of cycling and the training aspects in the first instance. And I kind of fell in love with the bikes. Like, really, that was something that kind of like captured my imagination really early doors. And there are a few people, so Callum Brooks and Duke as well were kind of some early figures where I just remember the way their bikes looked, and I wanted to build bikes that looked the same way.
Yeah.
And that's where the kind of the white bike entered the fray, and that's like a really, for me, is like a genesis of everything that came afterwards in terms of cycling. That was a frame that I built up with my dad about a year before he passed, and it just it's gone through so many evolutions, different group sets, wheels, crashes. It's been with me for a lot of it's my turbo bike now, so it's also in the pain cave. So there's a real love-hate relationship with it. But there's always something when I clip into it, which I think is really lovely. It's got a real story and journey with me. It was my bike, my main bike, up until you sold me my Standard, which I think was probably when we first like properly met. I think we'd met a few times off the bike and like CGC parties or events kind of in and around the cycling scene in London.
I've got after that, one of the first Standards that I sold.
Yeah, it was really early doors.
It was the first.
Yeah, and it was that in of itself was for me, it was a nice story as well, because I actually got knocked off a bike, and this was way back before it was when I was like commuting to work when I first moved to London, and because of the result of that, it meant I could buy the bike. So I've been really fortunate in all of my cycling that it's been kind of stories that potentially could have had a really unhappy ending that have allowed me to rewrite the course of that. So, but yeah, going back to when I started, it was lockdown. We didn't really have anything else to do. And it just really kind of took me back to a time when I, at that sense of freedom. Like you said, I've been in lots of different levels of sport. So I played, semi-professional rugby. I played football to a high level when I was younger. But they all kind of felt like
You're
things
one of
that
those annoying kids at school that's good at everything.
something like that, something like that. But I think they never felt quite right. They always felt like something I should be doing or somebody told me that I was good at and kind of followed on with. And that isn't to say like I didn't enjoy it, but I then through that found a sense of continuity and structure, which is something which I always struggle with. Like when I was younger, like my mum always used to say, I'd wake up every morning and be like, "What's the plan? Like what are we doing today?" And if we didn't have a plan, then I kind of just like everything just kind of collapsed inwards. So I am so attuned to that like weekly structure or monthly structure, and I've always had something, a goal or a season to work towards. So inevitably, I implemented that into cycling and immediately was looking at training plans and how to get stronger and all that kind of stuff. Because for the first time when I started a sport in cycling, I wasn't very good, and I think I find if you're for my personality type, if I'm not good at something, I either never do it again or I become completely obsessed. With running, I never did it again, hated it. With cycling, I became completely obsessed and just kind of went into all the different elements of it, the bike building, the culture around it. I always used to think like, it's weird. There's a real, split in cycling. It's either, the cliched dentists and bankers that are dropping 20k on a bike, and then I remember like going into Soho and to Regents and just like seeing really cool people cycling, and I just thought the culture around it was really cool, especially in London anyway, and that part of it kind of sold me. And then I had a few pretty rubbish first goes with group riding, just a couple of people that didn't really feel attuned to like a new cyclist. I felt quite judged about like what I was wearing or my bike and that kind of stuff. And then
Yeah, I mean that's not unusual. That I think
yeah,
there's been a real issue with cycling for a long time. I think it is changing, and I think
definitely,
credit to groups
definitely.
like Chain Gang for
Mm.
making it so much more accessible than it used to be.
Yeah, and that's really where they came in. I had ummed and ahed about joining another group ride, and two of the OGs in Chain Gang, Stevie and Daryl, I followed on Instagram through like they're both sneakerheads, and I remember following them way before cycling, and I remember seeing both of them post about Chain Gang, and they were doing Tuesday morning laps, which was, is the fast laps around Regents, the classic quintessential fast laps. And I remember for the longest time, I was like, oh, I'm not going to be fast enough. Like, I don't know how to ride in a group and was too scared. And then finally, I just thought, oh, fuck it, let's just go. I didn't have any lights. It was pitch black. I decided to join when it was like just starting to become winter and was really miserable. But I was immediately just welcomed by an open club and people that were funny and honest and felt like people that I knew for a long time. And then 6 months rolled by, and it was every weekend, two rides on a weekend and laps and all that kind of stuff. And then they kind of just like felt like a family, big group of family members. And then yeah, it's been 4 years, 4.5 years, which is crazy. And we started a race team in amongst that. We've got lots of different people doing different things, for the race team, which is predominantly where my connection back to the club is now. But they're just you couldn't find a more diverse, supportive, loving group that encourage people to go and do their thing and recognize people and support you in whatever it is. And then amongst all of that, was the stuff that you were doing as well with Ascend and and with cycling and with your journey. And I don't want to labor the point too much, but that video that you released back in, I think it was 2022, a few years ago anyway. I remember watching that and thinking like it just completely encapsulated how I was feeling, the good and kind of the bad as well. And it really acted as like a launch pad of like, oh, it's not just going to be, I'm not just going to spend a couple £100 on a bike from Decathlon. I'm going to really kind of dive in and act on this feeling. And I think I am quite a critical person, and I had a real love-hate relationship with like the gym and working out and stuff. And I really used to be quite hard on myself, especially with like eating and that kind of stuff. And I just felt like it was everything that like gym and training wasn't. It was really liberating in the physical sense of like you could go anywhere and do anything, but also you weren't looking in the mirror and like critiquing yourself. And when you first start, there isn't really there isn't any of the racing or FTP or any of that kind of stuff, which is you don't have any power meters or anything like that. So you kind of just hit the road, and if you want to go fast, you go fast. If you want to go slow and cycle for an hour and get a coffee, then you can do that as well. I've kind of moved away a little bit from that in the last couple of years, where I really tried to kick on and make some improvements in my training and set some goals. That brings its own joy and its own kind of benefits that weren't there in the cycling before. But that's the amazing thing about cycling, is you can do both. You can do the really hard training, and then yesterday morning we did Friday chat laps in 1 degree, and I still get the same feeling that I did when I started, of that freedom.
Nice. I mean, things have obviously evolved pretty quickly, I guess, because you've gone from chat laps to winning time trials.
Yeah,
And you've had a pretty good
yeah.
season, right?
Oh yeah, the season was amazing. I never really expected it to go that well. Um, you know, eight wins, lots of podiums, and I think as well just like a real level of consistency which I hadn't had previously, where I was doing races week in, week out, and it was a real fruits of the labor kind of situation, where I'd put in a real shift over the winter, 15 hours is kind of an average a week, and lots of turbo and structured sessions and some sacrifices, and it took a while to go over the hump. I think I was probably a little bit in my own head at the start of the season, and then I think once the first win came through, it was kind of a slight opening of the floodgates, and I think I could relax and breathe a little bit, which helped. And then as it always goes, circumstances, my trusty Standard had some issues. It was in the shop, and I needed a bike, and in you swooped overnight, and then there was that kind of element as well. Yeah, and then alongside that was kind of the content stuff, and I struggle with momentum. So I think if I have a story or a reason or consistency, then I can match that in my output. And all of a sudden I just kind of felt that creative element back again, which is where I wanted to document what I was doing, and kind of the ups and downs, because although there were lots of wins and results and positives, there were also the inevitable kind of downs where you're not always at the top. I think it's really important. I personally think it's really important not to just present the look at me, I'm winning and doing so well, because the season before that, I got 1 win and a decent amount of podiums, but a lot of the time I felt like I was just going through the motions, and I put in all this work and wasn't really worth it. And then season before that, I had a few crashes, and it just didn't really feel like anything was working out. And I'm a big believer in, like, you put the work in and you're honest and consistent, and the results will come. I just thought and hoped that they might come a bit sooner, but it's all the sweeter when they do come. So yeah, it's been, from end of 2023 up until now was kind of when I, between myself and my teammates and people, kind of made the decision to kick on a bit and try and get the head down and make the most out of what I've got.
I mean, it's been quite amazing watching, like, I guess the progress going from riding around on a 300-pound decathlon to winning TTs on another decathlon that's a little bit more expensive. But I mean, part of the podcast, and what I'm trying to get out of it personally is figuring out what motivates people, because I don't feel like I could be asked to get up and do the training, and I've never really, apart from like some mountain bike and cross stuff, which I always look at and think is so much more fun than anything on the road, and like road racing just seems so intimidating, and the hours and the dedication, and it's the same with like looking at ultra cyclists and going, how the fuck do you do that stuff?
Yeah.
And not that I'm saying talking to these people is gonna motivate me to do something. I'm way past that now and really don't give a shit, but just trying to figure out what's driven you to go from Regent's Park to TTs, and where'd it come from?
I think when I think back about when I decide, when I really decided like let's kick on, and I have had some natural ability and aptitude for it, and I remember seeing people kind of pushing on, and I remember thinking, I feel like I have that within me to do that, and I just never really put any kind of stock into anything more than just a few rides a week or anything like that, and I knew that to get better it was a question of time in the saddle. Coincidentally, around the time when I decided to give it a real go was when my dad got re-diagnosed with cancer. This was the end of 2022. Just a complete coincidence. EGC used to run a December distance challenge. It started off as something quite jovial and just a way of getting people out on the bike when it's typically a time when people don't do that. That very quickly descended into an all-out competition. The first year I was a little bit intimidated, and then this was the second year, and I said to myself, I was in a bit of a hole. I just found out the news that basically my dad was he was stage 4 liver cancer. His melanoma had spread, and we were all pretty sure that this was the end. We didn't know how long it was going to be or what it would look like, but I knew I needed something that would give me some structure, because I knew otherwise I might spiral. This isn't in any way, I'm sure if I had a therapist at the time, they would have told me that's not the way to deal with it. But I basically was like, I'm going to ride 100k a day for 25 days. And that's what I did, and did 2,500 kilometers in 25 days. It was pretty crazy, but I remember the feeling afterwards. It was something where I could kind of put some energy into, whether it was negative, positive, even just neutral. It just felt like something where I could kind of focus and kind of get a bit of that flow state or that zen, or kind of just switch off from.
Did it feel like healthy? Was it a
No, definitely not. No, that's why I'm saying I wouldn't. This isn't me saying to people that are going through a tough situation, go and ride 100 kilometers a day. That, if you want to do that, great. It will get you super strong, and it may build up crazy amount of fatigue. But it at the time, I didn't really have the vocabulary to understand what I was feeling and what I was processing. This was before I got diagnosed with OCD, and no, it didn't feel healthy. It felt good. I felt good doing it, and it felt like it gave me some stability. And I had friends rally around me, Harry and Jack mainly, but a lot of the CGC family as well were there with me when I was doing it. And that period afterwards, so he passed in May of 23. So in that period afterwards, kind of lit a match of like, right, let's get going, and kind of prove to myself that I can build something. And I think because of the situation that he was in, I couldn't, because of COVID, I couldn't really socialize with anyone. I couldn't afford to catch an illness or anything that might pass on to my dad. So it was kind of a storm of things that allowed me to kind of, that quintessential like lock in, where I couldn't really go out, couldn't really see anyone, and I had lots of time. There was still the kind of lingering COVID stuff. In a time when I wasn't doing that or working, I was seeing him and with him and my family. That was kind of the first time when I really put some distance and time into cycling. And then ever since, I kind of just got into that rhythm of a certain amount of time in the week and in the month and the year, and found that consistency. And I think that is the main thing for me is, motivation. I'm motivated one day a week. I'm motivated for a few hours, a week, where I'm thinking, this is the goal, this is what I want to work towards, or, this is the person that I want to be. The rest of the time, it's consistency. At the moment, today I didn't want to do 2.5 hours on the turbo. I wanted to lie in bed and chill out. Yeah. No one's questioning me there. But I think if you find that routine, if you find that rhythm, and that's why I think having goals is something that's really valuable. I'm not saying like they can be realistic to you or your situation or whatever's going on. It might just be I want to ride 5 times a week, or I want to do 5,000 kilometers in a year, or whatever it is, or I want to ride 1,000 meters elevation in a week, or whatever it is. It can be really small. It can be, something like that, or it can be something massive, like I want to do a transcontinental ride, or I want to become a Nat B level crit rider, or whatever it is. But I think if you have something that you're working towards, I find for me personally that allows me to do that kind of level of commitment. And then besides that, I just really like riding my bike really fast.
Yeah.
It is just really addictive, especially in the summer. Like if you're out for a ride with your mates and you're like 5-6 hours and you're absolutely smashed on the limit for that time, it really bonds you with those people, because you're really trusting them. Like you're going down the scents, or you're inches away from their wheel, and it's that, like I said, it's that flow state. And I probably I'm slightly addicted to that feeling. So I think that's why I'm always really keen to get across that some parts of this probably aren't particularly healthy. Like there are some parts of it.
Is that
I think
sort of distraction, or using it as a distraction, escapism? I mean,
yeah,
been there, done that.
yeah,
Been years doing it.
yeah.
Did loads of shit. You can look at my Strava from years ago, and you can look at all the peaks and troughs. And the peaks are generally like, I'm really unhealthy. And I'm in a not very good place. And then the troughs are like, I'm feeling a bit calmer now. And I reckon it's probably not until the last year, 18 months, where I've actually found balance, I guess. And I'm not chasing stuff. And there's a lot of stuff where I'm not going to say, I think I just don't care as much anymore. I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah.
I feel like I've got nothing to prove to myself or anyone anymore. And I think because I've taken such a step back over, say, the last 2 years in particular, I'm just like pretty chill. I can ride my bike. I can go out when I want. I can load up and go bike packing. And those things were I always used to look at bike packing in particular. I'd always look at it as being a way to escape.
Yeah, sure.
It was like, I don't want to be around anyone. I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want to be on my bike and left alone. And now when I do these trips, I think the last one I did, I was like, I'm not running away from anything here. Like this is nice.
I'm actually just doing it because I enjoy it.
My character definitely in the last year, where I've gone, actually, I'm not doing this anymore but there's no reason behind it. And that's really, really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, like you talked about the connections that you develop through chain gang, I guess. And I would have thought at the time that having those, and with cycling in particular, the way that it enables conversations, and sometimes it's a case of just letting stuff slip, and all of a sudden you're chatting to someone about stuff. How did those conversations like reshape your sense of belonging or understanding of what was going on?
Yeah, again, so I've always historically really struggled about being open and honest about my mental health and the ups and downs of it, and especially with my family and my mum and my sister. We were super close, and I think part of that, it was a recognition of that we were pretty lean, and if something bad happened, it affected all of us. And I think part of that, made me quite insular. So neither of them really found out about my mental health stuff until before cycling. I trained as an actor, and a lot of the pieces and performances that I created were centered around mental health, and I channeled a lot of that energy and a lot of that focus into those pieces, which again I think was just I didn't have the vocabulary. I didn't know how to kind of talk about it or to address it, and I'd had some good and bad experiences with therapy and that kind of stuff, and just hadn't really found anything that worked. And something that I found about cycling, and when I speak to friends or people, and they say, why do you cycle so much? Like, what do you love about it? There's all the classic things that we've just spoken about, but there's something about the conversation when you're riding next to somebody, when you're not face to face, like when they're next to you and you don't have to worry about eye contact or anything like
If you
that.
got
Or you,
sunglasses on, you can't see their eyes. It's
exactly, yeah, it's
brilliant.
perfect. It's perfect. I think that's why, that's why the connection with the people within CGC and when I started cycling was so quick, because I just found myself talking about stuff, and I wouldn't, it would never have happened.
Yeah, you sound like me, like 5+ years ago when I first started talking to people about stuff.
Yeah,
Exactly the same
yeah, it
thing that I
was.
went through.
Mm,
I moved back to London after my first episode, and
mm,
remember it was Regent's Park as well, and I was
mm.
with a not dissimilar group of people. They were much younger than me, and I was just letting stuff slip, and it was like, oh shit.
I've never told anyone that. Like, what's going on? It was crazy. Even when Dad got diagnosed, and yeah, like I said, it was pretty clear that he was probably going to pass away. I was cycling with two of my really good friends, Harry and Jack. Harry, who's one of my teammates, and probably spend an ungodly amount of time with in the course of a year. But they both just locked in. They both were like, "What do you need? We're here for you. We'll do the distance challenge as much as you need us, or as little as you need us. We can talk loads, or we can not talk at all." And the three of us really kind of just clicked in that moment. And I'd only known Harry for probably a few months. Like, I'd met him in that summer, summer of 2022. And then Jack was an old mate from uni, but I hadn't actually met him at uni. I met him post uni when he started cycling as well. And coincidentally, he lost his dad when he was younger, so he was a bit of a guiding force at that time as well. And it was the same thing. It was a time when I was really unsure what was going on and where I was at, and my headspace, and they were a tonic and a calming force in my life at that time, where I could just be really open. I could, spill my heart out and kind of say what was going on, or we could just be completely silent. I remember doing a bun run with Harry, and I probably said all of about 5 words. And we got home, and we were like, "Yeah, it was great." And then, spoke to my now wife, and she was like, "Oh, how was it?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was really good. We basically didn't say anything, and that's exactly what I needed."
There's someone that I've not ridden with for a while, but we used to go out on smash rides, and we'd both have headphones on and music on, and we wouldn't say a word. Like, and yeah, we
Yeah,
were together for three and a
yeah,
half,
yeah,
4 hours, just drilling it.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah, you'd get back, and it was like, did I say hello? Did I say goodbye?
Yeah,
I'm nothing. It's great.
nah, yeah, it's not needed. I think there's that, and then I have through CGC, I have really they're so diverse. Like, there's the age, demographic, backgrounds, professions. Like, there's so many different people, and every ride there's someone different you can speak to, whether you know them well or you don't. There's always a connection. There's always, like, it's my friend or family member, whatever it is. So there's always a real warm kind of welcome, which for me, I remember thinking when I started, like, I spent so much time with these people, and I remember thinking it used to be really difficult as an adult to make new friends. Like, your circles get smaller and smaller, I think, as you get older, from what I've observed anyway. And I remember kind of going to one of our first, like, summer parties, and I remember just looking at the group, and you would just never have put all of these people in a room together. Like, there's no way, and there's no way that we'd, like, be friends or mates or get along. And we had this this through thread of cycling that brought us all together. And now some of them, a lot of them are friends for life. Harry was a groomsman at my wedding, and I couldn't imagine a life without them. That's something which I feel incredibly fortunate to have found and to tapped into, and to have been kind of close to the bottom floor when it started, and to see people coming in now to do the same thing is amazing. And it's introduced me to people like you, and friends like you, where I just think, because I'm such an insular person normally, although clearly, like I sound of my voice today, I'm normally super closed off, and it takes me a while to warm up. So that's why a lot of my old friends that see me with the people that I cycle with, they just can't put it together, because they're like, this is a person that we didn't see come out for a long time. And
I think,
that
yeah,
feeling's
I think,
amazing.
I mean, I'm not dissimilar. I don't think people look at what I do for a living, and some of the events I go to, and they're like, who the fuck is that guy? Because it isn't me. But it's like, it's cool. So outside of CGC, what else helps? And what with was it just cycling? Did you get help? Were there
No,
any other?
no. I think first of all, first and foremost, I had, I don't even know if you're supposed to call them this anymore, but I basically had a breakdown about a month after my dad passed away, where I got to the point where I couldn't really leave the house. My OCD had just like completely taken over. And I had an incredible caseworker who really took the time to make sure I was diagnosed and receiving proper care. He kind of said to me at the time, you know, you've had this OCD your whole life by the sounds of it. It's something which you have developed your own coping mechanisms. But you know, you can either do some CBT therapy for that, or we can do some grief counselling. He was like, but with the grief counselling, it may feel situational. You know, it might not be long lasting. It might not be the sustainability that I was craving. I remember saying at the time, my life felt like, you know, the peaks and troughs and the extremes were so extreme. And I said, I just want to live in the middle ground. I want to find some middle ground and some stability. So he advocated for me to do CBT therapy. And I did that for 2 years. Again, I had a really amazing therapist who really took her time. We did it online, which for me was fantastic because I knew if I did it in person, I would find excuses. I'd find reasons not to go. You know, it's too far away. I haven't taken too much time off work or whatever it is. And she was amazing. It was originally was supposed to be 6 months. We did 6 months, and in that first period, it felt like we kind of just got to a baseline. We just got to like a neutral. We'd worked through, we'd triaged the, you know, not being able to leave the house or not being able to function. I mean, we'd only just got to a point where like we were building sustainability. So she advocated for me to have another year, and that was once a week. We did twice a week at the start, and then we went to once a week, and I honestly can say this hand on heart, it has completely changed my life. It's got to a point where, you know, at its worst, it would take me 2 hours to leave the house. You know, I'd be checking the locks, checking the doors. You know, for me, it was really the worry of outcome. So, you know, I had this fear that I'd come home and my flat would have burnt down. So I had to obsessively check all the switches and plugs and everything like that. And that first period, we did loads of exercises where it put me outside of my comfort zone, and you know, it was really challenging, it was really difficult, but it allowed me to address those things. And so, yeah, we did that for 2 years. And, you know, again, it didn't fix it. I still have those tendencies and those traits, but I now have tools and mechanisms which allow me to step back and to assess and to breathe. Because I think that was the problem, was I felt like I had this like weight on my chest and I couldn't breathe at times. And those tools have allowed that. So yeah, that was integral. And then, you know, I mentioned earlier, my wife, she has been a rock throughout all of this. She was the person that kind of said back in 2023, this isn't sustainable. You know, we can't live like this. You can't live like this. Something needs to change. And she allowed me and instilled the confidence in me to be vulnerable and to open up and to start to process. And I used to have a real fear of disappointing people and letting people down. And I used to think that, I still have that, but I used to think that if there was any weakness or anything that would draw attention away from other people, that I was a burden. And she was the first person that just made me really feel like I could take that time and could look inwards and be reflective. So yeah, that for me was a complete turnaround. And then also the new normal were, you know, at that time were offering the space for that grief counselling, group therapy. You know, I wasn't super consistent with that. I felt like I could drop in and out, which I think is part of the beauty of it.
It's real, yeah. I just having the flexibility. Just I mean, I'd go through phases with it as well, and was super inconsistent, but every now and then it would be, I know this is going to help. and I could, sometimes I'd sit there and contribute, and sometimes I wouldn't.
Mm.
But it's just that sense of relief afterwards, like there's other people going through similar stuff, or
Yeah.
actually having the ability to talk to people
Mm.
in the space to do it and feel
Mm.
safe was really, really important.
Yeah, so important. And I think that point you say there is essential to this conversation. Is there are others? I used to say this to myself. I was like, there are people that are going through so much worse. You can't complain. You shouldn't. Who cares about what you're feeling? And that's something which I felt when I saw that video that I mentioned earlier that you put together. But you know, like you said, there were times when I joined those sessions and I wouldn't say anything. I'd just be present, and I'd be listening and contributing towards other people's issues and offering my advice or opinion or whatever it was. And that ability to say that, acknowledge that there's something wrong and acknowledge that, that there's something that needs to change is so important, because often, comparison and looking at other people and their problems can shut you down. But in a space like that, where it's so open, it's so honest, it just allowed me to go, actually, like this is really important, that I can have this conversation. And it can be as little as large as you want. It can be completely go into the nub of an issue and really analyzing it and getting to the bottom of it, or it can just be a real simple, I've had this situation going on and it's really upset me and it's really stressed me out, and just hearing people offer their 2 cents on it is so valuable.
Yeah, I think I felt like it was almost a bit of a I tried therapy multiple times, and it
Mm,
didn't quite do the trick for me.
yeah.
Um, and like you said about being a burden earlier, you you don't want to unload on the people that you're close to and be a
Mm,
burden, but just
mm,
having that space where you could drop in and out, and it's like it was just the first few times I went, just feeling a sense of relief. It
massive.
was
Yeah.
it's just it's a really, really useful thing.
Mm,
And like for me, although I'm a fairly closed book these days, and I don't really share what's going on, and
mm,
um, I've had fairly hard boundaries when I get approached as well.
mm,
The first protocol for me is something like the new normal. I think what they do is
mm,
incredible. So yeah,
massively.
if you're sat there listening and thinking, where next? What do I do? Check them
Mm,
out.
massively. Yeah. And I think as well, even things like the Samaritans, I remember when I was in a really bad place, I called because I didn't really know where else to turn, and I just needed to talk. And sometimes, look, therapy is amazing. Therapy is it can be life changing, in the same way that medicine can as well. It can really change people's lives, but it can at times feel really lofty, and it can at times feel really heavy and intense. And sometimes the ability to just have a conversation, to, like you said, to dip in and out, I think is so worthy. And that's why I think that the consistency that they provide. So in my mind now, I know that it's there, and I can drop in, and it doesn't need to be, I don't need to go to my doctor. I don't need to speak to my therapist. I don't need, there isn't a minimum amount of time I need to do, or there isn't a questionnaire to fill out or whatever. It's just the ability to drop in. So services like that, I think, are so important, and I'm really keen to advocate for people that it doesn't need to be. You don't need to wait until that you're at your worst. You don't need to wait until you feel like you've got nowhere else to go. It can be
Yeah.
right at the start. It can be when the seed of an issue before it snowballs. And that for me is especially important, because I do snowball so hard, and I let scenarios grow in my head, and I make mountains out of molehills. And I find that the more proactive I can be about at the start of an issue, the more honest and open I can be, the more pragmatic and the quicker I can get back to those tools I was talking about earlier, that allow me to get back to that base level.
Yeah, I mean, it took me an awful long time. Like I'd say I wasn't honest with myself or anyone for a very, very long time. And it
Mm,
probably wasn't until my second episode when I got sectioned that things started to dawn on me.
Mm.
And it took me, taking a real back seat and learning what the tools are to deal with how I am,
Yeah.
and I used to talk so much about being open and honest, and I really wasn't. And the worst of it was I wasn't honest with myself.
Mm.
And it wasn't until that second episode where, and everything that happened, I guess, after it as well, where I was like, fuck it all. Like, I'm just going to take a break from everything and everyone.
Mm. Mm.
Um, and I got diagnosed. I was put on meds, and then I think I went through a period of just learning a bit about myself as well, and
Mm.
it all happened at the same time. And I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I feel like now I kind of have the tools to realize when something is going wrong
Mm.
and how I react to it and what I
Yeah.
do to stop anything spiraling. And
Mm.
I feel like I've been quite fortunate in the last 18 months that I've not had any further episodes, and I do feel balanced, and I'm not entirely sure why, but it's all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
if I see it coming again, because there's always that little bastard in the back of my head saying you're not out the woods. But I feel like if I feel so much more self-aware now that
Mm.
if I see this coming, I've got multiple tools at my disposal to be able to hopefully deal with it in a much better way than I have in the past. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
having
Yeah.
access to stuff like the new normal or
Mm.
friends or my partner,
Mm. Mm.
and not shutting myself off,
Mm.
it's really, really valuable. And I guess I started Ascend because, why did I start Ascend? I was getting lots of messages, like, because I was being so open and honest.
Sure.
And I'm saying that ironically, but I was getting lots of other messages from people, and you'd put something on Instagram and everyone fucking loved it, and I would,
Mm.
and I just felt like having the ability and a platform to be able to signpost, help, resources, there's loads of us going through loads of different shit. It was really, really valuable, and I get a pat on the back every now and then for thanks for what you do and thanks for what you've done. But I don't think I when I first started struggling with stuff, I couldn't
Mm.
find anything. I didn't have any
Yeah.
signposts, and yeah, I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
aware of Samaritans, and I probably could have got help somehow.
Mm.
But it feels like it's out there, and there are signposts, and if you can find stuff, and there are other people who will help you find the help you need, and
Mm.
having a group like you've got around you, like Chain Gang,
Mm. Mm.
um, it's all this stuff's really, really important.
Yeah. Massively. I don't want to underplay spaces and people like you and Ascend that have moved the conversation along. When I think about when I was a teenager, my awareness of my mental health, started at a really young age. I really started to exhibit kind of some of the patterns of behavior that have become, a fixture in my life from the age of probably 10 or 11. Was when I think it really started to present outwards. And when I was a teenager, there was things in the media, and there was some conversations around mental health, but like you said, it felt like you were in dark rooms and it was hush hush, and it wasn't really acknowledged beyond the immediate. And I feel like that has changed so much, and in a really short space of time. And like we said earlier, I think I used to hide in a lot of things, and like you were saying with the exercising, and was that necessarily healthy? I remember thinking like, oh, no one's going to question it because I'm super healthy, I'm super active, I'm doing all this stuff, so no one's going to question that. And even now, I think the awareness around mental health, the conversations, the forums have become so much more prevalent, and I think that's so important. Like you said, it's people like the new normal, Samaritans or whatever it is, Ascend, that are pushing that conversation forward. And it's so important. It's so important because, you know, I look at mental health like any other kind of, you know, if you broke your leg, or, you know, if you had a really bad illness, you wouldn't just go, oh, you know, it's fine, I'll get on with it, or, you know, I'll tell my friends, but, you know, I'm not actually, you know, I'm not going to do anything, you know. And changing that conversation around it, I think, has been so important. And, you know, I'm at a crossroads in my life where, you know, kind of decisions are being made, and, you know, I've just got married, and we're looking at that kind of stuff. And to me, I put so much stock in that baseline for my mental health, and that's, you know, sustainability for me is the most important thing. Like, yeah, it's great being super fit and healthy and exercising, but you know, actually the last couple of years, the thing which I'm most proud of is that, you know, stability that I found in my mental health. And as you say, that isn't saying, like, you know, I'm cured. That isn't what I'm saying at all. And I would never be looking for a cure, because I think it's something that will be lifelong. I think you know, there will always be the ups and downs. It's just the ability to manage them. It's the ability to recognize them. And like you said, to not spiral. I used to just spiral. I used to just get completely out of control and would shut down. And, you know, when you have people in your life that you love, and, you know, they love you, you can't do that. You need to be able to speak to them. You need to be able to tell them. I'm not saying, you know, you can't have those feelings, or those, you know, those emotions, or those thoughts in any way. You know, I think they will be there. It's just like you said, it's the ability to recognize them, and to reach out to support networks, whether, you know, whether it's healthcare professionals, whether it's, you know, volunteers at a mental health charity, friends, families, loved ones. You know, it's just the ability to do that, and to have the confidence that, you know, you're not a burden. And I promise you, whoever's listening, you know, you yourself, Nick, you know, to me, myself, you're not a burden. It's just not the case. Like, please have a conversation, as little as large as it is. Just talk, and, you know, you'll find the right place, you'll find the right space, people, whatever it is. That for me is the most important thing. Cycling's great. I love bikes, all that kind of stuff. But I'm always so happy to speak to people, you know, whatever it is. If, you know, if they want to chat to somebody that's gone through it and they're thinking about, you know, reaching out, whatever it is, I'm always really happy to have that conversation, because I think it's so important. And you know, I probably wasn't afforded the same luxury when I was younger, which is why, you know, friendships like this, Nick, are so valuable, because, like I said, if there's one, there's many. And you know, the ability to connect with people that have, you know, have had similar experiences, or gone through similar things, and they can, you know, be in vastly different stages of their lives, and completely different, you know, backgrounds, or lead ups to those is liberating. Like, points to the fact that it you know, it can be anyone. It can happen to anyone at any time, any age, any background, whether they're rich or poor, whatever it is. You know, there's somebody going through it, and, you know, there's somebody that'll be able to be there to support you in whatever capacity that is.
Nice. I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. What I really want to encourage people to go onto the journal and read what you wrote. It's it kind of feels like what I used to do, and I've not done for a very long time. And it's such a good, really beautifully written piece. I was,
Thank
you know,
you.
when we started talking about doing this and doing the journal post as well, does it feel like a rebrand, a restart, a rebirth? Well, I don't know, but to have that on the journal, I'm super proud to be able to put it there, and
Cheers, dude.
also to call you a mate and have you on this.
For sure.
It's been a cool couple of years watching you and seeing what's happening just generally, whether it's riding
Yeah.
bikes or being cool.
I try.
Um, yeah, I'll put some links up for the charity and some other bits and pieces
For
that
sure.
people might find useful, and obviously to your social media profile, so people can have a look and see what you're up to as well. So I'll get those up shortly, and I just want to say thanks for coming on this, and for the journal post as well.
Not at all, man. It's an honor. Like I said, to even just to be involved. I didn't think it would ever happen. So yeah, I'm feeling very lucky, and yeah. Oh, I get emotional. Yeah, it's been, yeah, like you said, it's been a wild couple of years, but for both of us, I think it's been amazing, mate. So yeah, proud of you, proud of this,
Cool.
and thank you.
All right, man. I'll catch up with you again soon, no doubt.
Take it easy.
Take care, man. See ya.